What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Actor Podcast. I'm your host, Eric L. Williams. Now, on this episode, we're going to be talking about podcasts. Now, if you're not watching this on YouTube, you can't see me pointing to my really awesome t-shirt that says podcast. I got this shirt from my good friend David Shands, who is the host of the Social Proof podcast, which isn't a podcast specifically geared towards actors, but it's a really dope podcast nonetheless that I think you should check out. But there is one particular episode where he speaks to a group of people who put together an independent film, and they talk about the process of making that movie. Now, you may be wondering, Eric, why are you talking about podcasts? Don't you want me to listen to yours? Well, yeah, absolutely. I want you to listen to my podcast. But it would be pretty stupid of me to tell you, don't listen to anybody else's podcast but mine. It's just really ridiculous. So what I wanted to do was just highlight some of the podcasts that I listen to on a very regular basis. Now, these are in no particular order. I just started writing them down, so they're not ranked or anything like that. It's just podcasts that I listen to frequently that I think will be beneficial to you in your acting career. All right, so first up is the Think Bigger Actor podcast with DeJuan Johnson. Now, DeJuan is a working actor. He was on Bosch for 7 seasons, but he's also a coach. And his coaching program gears more towards working with your mindset rather than acting techniques. And I resonated with that because you can find acting technique all over the place. And you get to a certain point where continuing to look for different techniques isn't quite the most efficient use of your time. I'm not going to go into when you know that or all that detail. That's something that's on an individual basis. But your mindset is always going to be very important in the development and the growth of your career. And that was one reason why I gravitated towards DeJuan's podcast. That and also, it's cool to see somebody that looks like you doing something that is beneficial. So next on the list is Hollywood Bound Actors with the host Christine Horn. Now, Christine is an actor and a coach as well. She doesn't really have guests on her podcast for the most part. Typically, it's just her speaking, but she comes with a wealth of knowledge as far as being an actor goes. Or she's been, on TV and film. She's done theater and Broadway, off Broadway. She's done a lot, so she has a lot of information that she shares very freely, and it's a nice way to get a good chunk of information without having to make a big time commitment. Next up is Audrey Helps Actors. Now, Audrey Moore is the host of this podcast, and it's actually the first podcast that I subscribed to that was specifically geared towards actors. The little jingle, the theme song, or whatever you want to call it, that plays at the beginning, I thought was hysterical, and it grabbed my attention. So I was like, okay, this is a fun person, and the podcast is very interesting. She has a lot of great guests on there that have a lot of insight from different perspectives and from different, I guess you could say, aspects of an acting career. Next up is One Broke Actress. Now, this is a podcast hosted by Sam Valentine. Sam is not a broke actress anymore, but the brand name is something that will grab your attention, and it's worth listening to. Sam has a lot of insight. She gives a lot of detail as far as like the journey goes of being an actor, and just lessons that she learns along the way. And then she brings on guests who are able to share very similar and often sometimes different perspectives. Next on the list is That One Audition with Alicia Oxy. Now, with That One Audition, the focus is more on not so much the entirety of an actor's career, but it kind of has a focal point of, that one audition that really changed the game for you. Now, the guests that she has on there are, highly talented and they have done a lot of work. But the springboard of this particular podcast is, like I said, that one audition, hence the name. I got into this podcast listening to the episode where she interviewed Lawrence Fishburne. And hearing him tell these stories grabbed my attention and basically immediately made me want to subscribe to the podcast and hear more that other actors had to say, coming from this perspective. Next up is Secrets of a Hollywood Talent Manager. Now, this podcast is hosted by Wendy Elaine Wright, and it has a different perspective from other podcasts, wherein Wendy isn't an actor per se. She's a manager. She's done so for years, but she has a lot of insight and she has a passion for helping actors. And really, that is what you need to create a podcast. You don't have to be an actor necessarily to create a podcast for actors, but you do need to have a love for actors and a desire to help us. And I say us because I'm an actor. And Wendy does that in this podcast, which is an extension of the work that she does through her program, Hollywood Winner Circle. And last but not least, the Blue Minivan. Now, the Blue Minivan is a podcast that's hosted by my dear friend, Toby Wyndham. If you don't know who Toby is, check out episode 1 where he was my guest. Toby and I grew up together, and I say this all the time. I think he's one of the dopest actors of all time. Now, his podcast, he brings on guests, and they have a myriad of things that they talk about. And a lot of it has to do with your acting career, but kind of comes into this life experience as well. Now, there's a reason why his podcast is called The Blue Minivan. If you want to know what that reason is, go check out the podcast. He goes into the reasoning behind the name of the podcast. That's all that I've got. That's the list. Is this an exhaustive list of podcasts? Absolutely not. But these are the ones that I listen to very frequently. Now, I'm going to leave notes. Leave notes. Of course I'm going to leave notes. This is a podcast. There's always notes. I lost my train of thought there for a second. But I'm going to leave links to all of these podcasts in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, that translates to links in the description. Check out the podcasts. If you resonate with them, subscribe. Show them some support. It doesn't cost anything to support podcasters that you feel are providing you with some value. Hopefully, I fall into that category, and I'd appreciate a good review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and share this on social media with any actors that you feel would benefit from this information. You can find me on social media at The Actor Podcast. Drop me a line. If there are podcasts that you think that I should check out that I didn't have on this list, let me know. I'm always interested in getting some more insight and finding new podcasts. I really enjoyed this particular medium. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think the growth of the podcast industry will be beneficial to actors in a lot of different ways. That's all I have for this particular episode. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And until the next time, I'll see you on set.